Good day to you. You know, it's truly profound to me that today, for the first time in the history of the world, there is probably one aspiration more than any other aspiration that human beings have if they could truly choose their own career path, their own way of making money in life and making it through life. And that career path is working on TikTok, right? Or Instagram, right? Or possibly YouTube or some other social media platform to make money. I think that's how a lot of people think today, and they're just waiting to be discovered. And they're putting things out there. They're making posts and putting out videos and recording stuff and putting it online and throwing mud at the wall, so to speak, and seeing if anything sticks, seeing if they can become famous, see if they can amass a ton of followers to somehow convert that into a living and a career. Is it not true? And so that introduces today's subject, which is all about platforms. And the whole word platform is a word that has really gone through a lot of transformative changes. It originates from a French word that means plate form. Plate form, which is basically identifies something as having a flat form. Well, that is very far from how the platform has come today, which is something that we metaphorically think of as something that we can stand on and then present ourselves. But of course, that's not what we're studying today as we take on our second to last chapter in Fuchs and what's going to initiate the next 3 weeks, which will be a little bit different. So the difference is for the next 3 weeks, for me to introduce them to you now, is today we're taking on platform capitalism, and I'm going to leave you with a lot of reading on your own today to explore ideas that are new to you and are solutions to many of the problems that we've talked about in this course so far, so that you can get the most detailed information from the original thinkers, and so that you can formulate your own ideas without me coming in the way. And also, it's a way of me starting to end the course, to transition out of it by encouraging more thinking on your part. And that's going to extend to next Monday as well. Next Monday, there will not be any instructor video at all. And the reason is because the chapter that you will be reading is not from this book. It's a chapter that I have written. And so I want you to hear my voice in your head as you've heard me all semester long without me repeating the information on video. That chapter is on what I call the focused self on social media. So we'll be talking about that, or we'll be communicating about it, I think is more accurate, next Monday. And then we have our final chapter for the course, which is coming from Fuchs as well. And that chapter and this chapter that we're taking on today on platform capitalism, they're basically now presenting solutions to the problems that he has identified, while also still elongating those problems and developing them even further. Let's start out with a definition of platform. You can look at many definitions in the chapter. I really like how Fuchs, in the end, though, comes up with his own definition, a definition that fits in with a critical perspective on social media use, and a definition that also fits in with his political economy approach to everything. And he says a platform is basically an online software environment. That's what a platform is. It's an online software environment that organizes, that's a key word, that organizes human information, activities, communication, commerce, and a whole lot more through internet technologies. That's what a platform is. It is still a face plate. It is still a place to stand, but now it's in a virtual world. It's an online software environment, essentially. But it's not just software. It's not just technology. It's not just learning how to jump on your phone and use the internet or use any social media platform by signing up for it and learning what all the buttons mean. It's not just that. It's also that a platform is a social system, because a platform organizes how we communicate with each other and what we like and what we talk about and what we don't like and what we don't talk about. And so there is, in fact, a platform economy that then determines the ownership of the social media platforms. It determines the economic activities of these social media platforms. It determines the work environment of these social media platforms. The political economy of social platforms determines all of these, as well as relations of production. That's a very Marxian term, relations of the production, who owns the production processes. That's what we're referring to there. The platform society was developed by Raymond Williams. He's a famous cultural theorist, and he said that culture is much more than just pop culture or high culture. Culture is a whole way of life. It's how we take in life. It is, I love this expression, it's a mode of interpreting experiences, how we see the world. You know, you can see the world through God. You can see the world through rock and roll. You can see the world through marijuana. You can see the world through a lot of different things, country music. There's many ways of seeing the world. It's like a mode, right? It's like a prism. It shapes the way that you see the world. That's what Raymond Williams is talking about. And through that we get platformization. Platformization is the dominant model of communication in our society today. It's that we think of all the different ways that we communicate. We can communicate by writing a letter. How many people do that anymore? I have a master's student right now writing a master's thesis on the loss of letter writing and therefore the loss of intimacy. Isn't that an interesting idea? Have you ever written a letter to somebody? That's one way to communicate. Another way for the deaf is with hand signals. That's a way to communicate. We have a sign language interpreter on our floor, and she communicates regularly with students who cannot hear or cannot hear well. They're using their hands and symbols all the time. You can communicate that way. You can stand opposite a person, like going out to a diner on a Sunday morning or a Friday morning, or students 2 o'clock in the morning, and you can talk with people, and you can also jump on your phone and speak to people that way. And that is the dominant form of communication today, is it not? Platformization has taken over as the main way that we communicate with each other, and it involves higher levels as well as it involves interactions between platforms and society. Like Facebook has tremendous powers for censoring people and putting people in so-called Facebook jail, terms which only serve to legitimize a private profit-making company that actually has control over a person's free expression. Same with Twitter, same with TikTok. There are community guidelines on TikTok. All of these major profit-making social media platforms, they have tremendous control over society. They interact with society on a daily basis. Congress investigates these platforms. Facebook has been fined 3 times for breaches of data, for providing data, personal information, to commercial advertisers. And so there is a much higher level also at play here in platformization. And this also leads to datafication. Datafication, this is where previously unquantified dimensions of society and life have now been quantified by social media platforms. For example, Facebook is really the first company to quantify, that is to count, interpersonal relationships. Relationships with people. How many friends do you have, for example? How many likes have you gotten? For example, algorithms that generate what content you're going to see from your so-called friends. You don't see content from all of your friends. And it's the same for Instagram, etc. This is quantifying dimensions of our lives, counting them out, providing them in data sets to advertisers. These are areas of our life that have never been quantified before. You can say Instagram has quantified beauty. Have we ever quantified beauty before? Instagram has done it. This therefore leads us to platform capitalism. Platform capitalism, which is the title of a book by Nick Srini. And I love how folks, like him or not like him, agree with him or disagree with him, get confused by him or get enlightened by him. He researches. He has throughout his work this really incisive book. I didn't say insightful, I said incisive. This book is just jam-packed with original research that he's taking, and he's informing his ideas, and I hope you see that. And one of these people is Nick Srini, such a tough word to pronounce. Platform capitalism. He says the old-time capitalism was you go around the world looking for raw materials like oil or gold or slaves. Yeah, we can think of it that way, human beings. But the new platform capitalism is data. That's the new I should say the new capitalism is platform capitalism. It's the raw material is now data. It's data, and social media platforms provide a very efficient method for collecting that data. You don't have to go out into the fields with the brushes and shovels and chisels and chip away to find dinosaur bones with social media. You type on a keyboard, right? You create TikTok videos. You somehow become really famous for some kind of gig that you do on social media, and that leads you to then monetize your content. That's platform capitalism. It's very efficient, in other words, for capital accumulation. And there are 5 types of it, according to Nick Srini. So we've got advertising platforms like Facebook and Google. That's one kind of platform. A second type is cloud platforms like iCloud and Google Docs or iTunes. And then we've got industrial platforms. These are platforms that are making the hardware for us. We've got IBM, Lenovo, whoever's making the hardware, Sony, whoever's making the stuff that you're typing on, that's the industrial platforms. Then we've got product platforms. These are taking products and redistributing them in new ways. Netflix does that. Hulu does that. And then we have lean platforms. Lean platforms are platforms where the platform is organized, managed, and owned by a company, but then everything else is outsourced to another country. Like when you make a phone call and you get a representative on there who's clearly from another country. This is what Uber and these other shared services do. Uber owns the brand, the platform, but it's other people doing the driving. That's the different dimensions of platform capitalism today. So now finally, through all of this, and really a takedown of platform capitalism because of the organization of human beings into selves that are lesser than they could be, to put it in my own way, trying to paraphrase Fuchs. Fuchs now starts to promote what he sees as alternatives to all of the criticisms that he's offered, or to all of the things that he's criticized before. And it starts off with platform cooperativism. Platform cooperativism, basically, and now here's to introduce a really big idea, when you have different ways of funding activities inside a country, when you have different ways of funding it, or what we might call a political economy, you've only got 3 choices, 3 major choices. One choice is a capital funding model or a capital accumulation model. That's what we've been studying all semester. That's what you've grown up under. That's what you probably have not critiqued because, as they say, a fish can't see the water that it swims in, but that's what we've been attempting to do this semester. That's one way. A second way, which you haven't been as exposed to because it's not a tradition in the United States, is the idea of public goods organized by the state. When it said the state, it means the government or the entity that's the governing authority. So that, once again, that's public goods organized by the state. If you go to a park in your town, that's a public good. It's supposed to be a place that you can go enjoy flowers and have greenery around you. That's a public good. The local government owns it, preserves it, etc. That's what we're talking about here as a second way of perhaps funding social media. And then you've got a third way, which is gifts. Gifts organized by a civil society. Gifts organized by a civil society. That's where people who have done well in life and companies who have done well, they give back, right? Charities. They donate. They purchase things and they sponsor things. They take people in on internships. This is how public broadcasters operate in the United States when they go through their annual gift-giving campaigns this month in April, when they start to say, hey, if you really like our content, become a subscriber, become a member subscriber. You'll get a free coffee mug, etc., etc. That one's very difficult to rely on, right? So the other 2 are the 2 options, and the public goods ones is the one that we're going to be developing in our final Fuchs 2 chapters, our final 2 Fuchs chapters, I should say. Examples of common goods operating social media platforms, just to give you 2 right away so you're not scratching your head and saying, where are these? Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a platform that students use on a regular basis. They look it up for their research, for research papers. Now, I have colleagues, professors who say, absolutely, I will not accept any Wikipedia entries at all. You must go to original sources. And I'm not that way myself as a professor. I'm happy for students to get started with Wikipedia because the review process is actually excellent. And a lot of information, not all of it, a lot of it is very helpful and incisive and accurate. Not all of it. But it's a good starting point. Is it a place to really get raw reading, to get raw interpretation, to get original thinking? No, it's not. So it doesn't substitute for a journal article or a book, but I don't think it's bad on face value. More importantly, though, however, it's a cooperative. They ask for donations. They don't necessarily go after people in a direct way. They allow you the option when you get onto Wikipedia during certain time periods of the year, if you want to provide for Wikipedia. It's a kind of public goods organized by the state. The state does not tax Wikipedia. It's a way of looking at social media platforms, although this does have a gifts organized by civil society dimension as well. It's a way of looking at social media platforms differently. Another one is Creative Commons. Creative Commons is a place where you can go, and many professors go, to provide readings that are free, that are in the public domain for students, especially in an era where textbooks are so outrageously priced, plus all the codes, everything that you have to do to get to the so-called material that's going to be maybe quizzed on by the professor. And I don't mean that facetiously, because I do mean that sometimes it just doesn't pan out that way, but that's part of the problem. That's why students are driven to book rentals, right? That's why students are driven to trying to find free copies of books. Well, Creative Commons says the people who have provided their content on this site, they're willing to let their material be shared. And I have many colleagues, like my colleague Jem Zaitanoglu in my department, who regularly provides freeware or public domain readings available through Creative Commons, so students don't have to purchase those books. Now let's move on to a whole other idea. We've moved past platform cooperatives. Now we're going to talk about platform cooperatives. I guess it's not a whole other idea, but it's an extension of that. These are companies that are collectively owned. Okay, they don't just have a small group of owners that are owning the stock, and the person who's making the content is not involved in ownership. No, cooperatives are collectively owned right down through the line. Managers, content producers, editors, fact checkers, all of them, they own a piece of the pie. Therefore, they also are interested in secure and decent pay. So they are, you can say, companies with a mission. They're not really companies, they're corporations, or they may be organizations that are nonprofit based, but they are organizing decent pay and secure pay versus no pay at all, right? You're not receiving any pay at all right now for anything you do on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, anywhere, unless you're an active social media monetizer. Platform cooperatives also are transparent. You can see their financial data. They are participatory. That means that the owners, no matter whether you're a small owner, a big owner, a laborer, a manager, whatever, you get to participate in decision making. And there are worker benefits like sick paid leave and family and medical leave. These are all human protections that society provides in other forms, and according to what government pension program you might belong to, what health insurance you might belong to. But this is part of what is considered to be an essential model for a platform cooperative. And above all else, to avoid workplace surveillance, where at work you are being surveyed to provide more data, which is what you're doing every time you're on Facebook, every time you're on Instagram, every time you're on Snapchat right now, unless you opt out of those privacy policies, which most people do not do. And so there are examples of nonprofit sharing, examples of these cooperatives that we're talking about, and they are going to be involved in your discussion question today. I'll mention them now, just four of them. One is Lumio, another one is Stocksky, another one is Resonate, and then you will recognize this one, and it will help guide you into thinking about these other ones that are more commercially based or are commercially based that exist there. Fairbnb, and you know what one that sounds like. So I'm introducing you now to Fuchs so that you can extend some of your knowledge about alternative ways of organizing social media and therefore our lives other than capital accumulation models. That's your task to extend the thinking from today's instructor video. Have a great day.